let's stay with this period of the matured colonialism. You know, until about the middle of the 19th century, the orientation to colonies like Guyana was about maximizing profits for private investors, right? By about 1854, there's a shift in policy, and it's referred to as the new imperialism or constructive imperialism. And the aim is, it's to draw upon these, quote, tropical estates to generate the raw materials and resources that would benefit English development, English social, economic, and political development. And it is said that one of the early governors of British Guyana, Sir Henry Barclay, 1849 to 1853, is recognized as the colonial professional who established a managerial style that was required, expected to conduct this this project of new imperialism. New imperialism as a development idea was spurring economic development in tropical plantations, and that was their priority areas. And the goal of this policy was to give British industry competitive advantage in the global economy by controlling access to the raw materials of its colonies and ensuring dominance in the markets of the British Empire over which the sun never set. That was the purpose. The purpose of development was to extract. It was an extractive proposition, right? Conversely, in the United Kingdom, the task was to build tastes for materials from the common, from the empire. Well, by the turn of the 20th century, as a result of all of Guyana's potential, you have a pretty substantial bureaucracy in Guyana, a pretty substantial English bureaucracy in Guyana. In 1891, it numbers of about 4,000. 4,000, a population at that time was about 248, 250,000. But the English aesthetics, English music, English values, English lifestyle was at the apex of the society. All else was of lower hierarchy. And one of the special places was the assembly rooms there in Georgetown. I'd never seen this photograph until about 2 weeks ago when a young Guyanese by the name of Andrew Jeffrey shared this with us. So the leisure practices of the ruling elite in Georgetown privileged a certain style of music. European, classical, what was defined as good music. If you look at the newspaper advertisements in the Chronicle during this period of time, you see the sheet music that's coming in is Chopin, Bach, Beethoven, you know, it's Elgar, you know, it's that kind of stuff. Okay, so during this period, the first decade, 2 decades, 1900 to 1920, there's the ongoing influence of the European ruling class. But the European ruling class, although they're living in a segregated type of Georgetown, in certain wards, they're not insulated completely. Because within those wards, you have the range yards where the butlers and the cooks and the coachmen and the washers live. And so you've got this interaction and exchange taking place. There's a wonderful story in the Argosy this early decade of a son of an upstanding family. Pope's practice. You know, as the elite classes had their assembly rooms, the working people had a style of partying that's called the practice, right? This is where you go and you get down to fiddle and mandolin, mouth organ, and you know, that kind of stuff. So the guy goes in, pops the fete, and when he gets into the fete, the first person he sees is the maid of the house. So the maid gave him a dance, and he begged her not to tell that he poked the fete. So although you may have had segregated structures, you still had this opportunity for interaction and ultimately engagement or exchange. Also, in this moment, you needed performers. You needed performers who performed the music for the elite, you know, and it is local folks who are performing the music, right? It's local folks who are performing the music. So you've got the local person as connector and transferrer. In addition, there's a growing middle class insurgency during this period of time. There's a questioning about what is going on, you know, why can't the middle class be involved? Dr. Martin is doing some work on the second newspaper by people of color in this country, called the Creole. And this is operating in this mid-19th century into the first decades of the 20th century. And this is also showing this agitation, this demand for change in the society. So if you recognize that governance is not only those who make decisions about the allocation of the resources, governance has to pay attention to those who are outside of the decision-making process, who are agitating to participate in the process of making decisions. So in the musical realm, you're beginning to see this tendency of the marginalized saying, hey, I want a piece of this action. Listen to me, I've got a voice. And in the 20th, in 1901, we have this song by Peter.
McCarthy in the Morning, words and music by Peter Mortimer de Weever, sung by Joseph Simmons and the Woodside Singers.
The interesting thing about De Weever, this is recognized as the first song in Creolese of which you know the author. Right, 1901, Peter Mortimer de Weever. Let me stickle a little bit on Peter Mortimer de Weever. Son of an immigrant, St. Martin's. The family came to Guyana in about 1845. The de Weever family has led to a musical tradition in Guyana. That's Leonard Dolphin's tradition. But what is when you deconstruct the lyrics of that song, De Weever is showing solidarity with the working man. He is saying, look, if it rains or shines, I'm coming out to work. This is totally destabilizing the anti-emancipation rhetoric about why should you give the Africans independence, emancipation. They're not ready for it. You know, they're going to bring ruin to the country. And here this man says, I'm an old man now, right? But all I want is a coffee in the morning. I will go to work every day, rain or shine. I will even not go to church. You know, so I think De Weever is using this work to introduce, to contribute to a conversation that is indicative or suggestive of a working class, middle class solidarity that is going to grow as the decades proceed. By 1920, the establishment, the European establishment is being challenged. Is being challenged to the creation of a number of ethnic organizations in the society. Critchlow, coming out of the 1905 Rheinveld massacre, becomes the situational leader there. People like Westmus and Rodney defines the 1905 Rheinveld uprising as being as architectonic, as seminal, as profound in Guyana's history as the Soviet Revolution is to the Soviet Union. Because emerging out of that conflict in Rheinveld there, where the local police literally mows people down, Critchlow is seen as the situational leader. And this moment is a statement of solidarity. Because if you read Ashton Chase, Chase talks about workers from the East Bank sugar estate are marching into town to join up with their brothers who are working on the waterfront. And they're led by drum and fife. And they describe the drum as the Taja drum. So they're coming into town and they're shot down. Critchlow emerges as the situational leader. And by 1919, he got the formation of the DGLU. But in 1920, the Chinese Association is formed. 1929, E.F. Fredericks from Buxton creates the Negro Progress Convention, which is a very interesting organization because it is resonating with the ideas that are in the African-American struggle in the United States. It is closely aligned with Booker T. Washington and the Tuskegee Institute. And among the early Guyanese who go to study at Tuskegee is Vestalo. And Vestalo studies under Professor Davis, who is leading the charge in the United States about collecting, celebrating, and promoting the Negro spiritual. And what does Vestalo do? When she gets back to Guyana in the 30s, she creates the Dawson's Music Lovers Club, which leads to that fundamental work on collecting, storing, and celebrating Guyana's folk heritage. So here is a